Alright, in today's video we're going to be talking about another musket build. This is actually a new musket build that I've been trying. It has existed for a long time, but I've never really put thought into a kit for it, and it's absolutely viable. It's a fun build. I've got a bunch of musket highlights in today's video as well, but in general this is a fun build, and not only that, this is a much cheaper build to invest in, and we'll talk about why in a sec. Today's video is sponsored by U7Buy, a trusted digital marketplace for all things gaming related. It's a one-stop shop for cheaper prices on gift cards, game keys, and other services at a 10% discount or more, serving millions of customers worldwide with over 30,000 reviews on Trustpilot, and you can even get a further 3% discount with code oreo at checkout. My referral link will be in the description. So to start off with, this set is of course using the DEEPFREEZE artifact, and is again much more budget friendly in terms of cost to investment. And the specific reason, and especially this build, is why you won't see a lot of the Gorgonite gear, is because it's unrealistic, right? If you want to have a build for all the current musket sets that I've made, and bow builds even, it's not literally possible to have that many Gorgonite inductors, and that's why this build is more of a niche fun build that you can use in Outpost Rush, where you have a little bit of 700 gear score stuff, but it's still competitively viable. But to that, there are some, of course, 725 pieces that we can have, such as our artifacts and named weapons, as those are easier to get more of. So starting off with the Hoplite Musket, of course, is the foundation of a lot of my musket builds these days. Hoplite Musket, this time we're adding Frost Achievement, of course, as we're pairing it with the DEEPFREEZE, which we'll jump onto in a sec here. With that, that obviously, of course, means we're going to be splitting down damage to ice this time around with the augmented Frozen gem, which is a nice gem split. And then jumping over to the DEEPFREEZE, which is the artifact that really makes this build shine. We're using the DEEPFREEZE, which comes from, I believe, Glacial Tarn, the second boss. And it has the Chilling End exclusive perk to it, which gives us 15% additional damage to frozen, rooted, or chilled enemies, which is a very nice perk, and this works on both weapons as well. So if we cast an Ice Storm and then we shoot someone in it, we get that 15% extra damage, and that also applies to shooting targets in friendly Ice Storms as well. So it's a little bit of a team utility bonus that comes through as well. For gem on this, I added Frozen Cruel, as of course we're going to be shooting at targets in crowd control effects, which is these here, which applies a slow, and by the way, especially our Ice Wall, or our Ice Shower, I forget the name for it, and our Ice Storm, we both get that slow inside that ability, which again is why I recommend running Cruel in your Ice Corner or DEEPFREEZE. Comes with a vicious and refreshing move, and then we've added Unbroken Winds. This is for the Wind Chill, which is one of my favorite abilities currently. The end of last stream, we were on the front page of Twitch. Massive thank you to everyone there. It's an incredibly fun ability. You just get to basically push and shove with this ability, and adding this perk to our DEEPFREEZE, we get a lot of bonus damage as well, which is a lot of fun. So that is the two weapons for this build. Jumping on to the armor, where things get a little bit cheaper and a little bit easier to invest in this build if you would like to try it, especially coming from a lot of my Gorgonite builds. This is much more friendly, and again, more cost effective, especially if you want to try more niche builds, which was the goal of this video, because it's literally not possible to have a Gorgonite inductor for all of my builds, as there has only been a few months. You know, you probably at most have maybe 15 Gorgonite inductors, enough for 3 or so sets. So without further ado, we have the Admiral's Tricorn Cap. This is the Admiral set, which comes from Barnacles and Black Powder, mutation level 3. Or you can spam any mutation you like with dense mutated materia and take it to the Gypsum Kiln for 3,500 and craft a piece, which in my opinion, the most effective way to go about this, especially if you want to relax, is just spam mutation level 2s, farm out your mutated materia, and then take it to the Gypsum Kiln and craft your Admiral set there. So, anyways, the reason why we got the Admiral set for this build is, of course, it's cheap, especially if you just farm mutations, or if you do mutation level 3s and you want the drops. It comes with Elemental Aversion and Ice Harnessing, which are two fantastic perks. Obviously, we want Ice Harnessing for our DEEPFREEZE and to buff our Musket 50% split. And then Unending Thaw is a weapon perk we put on here, so that's extra damage, and the effect remains for longer on Ice Storm, which is really strong, especially with Deep Freeze, because of course we get that bonus 15% damage on frozen enemies or chilled enemies. So that really comes through, especially in this build, and is a fantastic perk that you would want to add to your Tricorn Cat. You could add it on any piece or any order. And jumping on to the chest here with the Admiral's Petticoat, again we're going to be using the full Admiral set in this build, which is really nice, and again comes with Ice Harnessing Elemental Aversion. And of course, if I forgot to mention it, we're adding the frozen Runeglass cases, and then you can add either emeralds or rubies to those cases, depending on the meta. In my opinion, I do around 3 rubies and 2 emeralds because the current meta is a lot of fire damage, and I have started to see a lot more thrust weapons pop up. And as a range player, I'm usually mostly taking damage from other ranged, whether that be thrust or elemental. It is mostly fire or a bit of musket or bow, 50% split. So that is the chest. Jumping onto the glove, which is the Admiral's Claws, another one from the set of course. We're adding the Flame Conditioning perk to this, which is, in my opinion, the best possible third perk, as there's no other weapon perks we need, and you know, we can just have a little bit more fire resistance, especially in the current meta. Of course, adding our Frozen Fire Ward or Frozen Thrust Ward, depending on what you want to resist more against. Onto the Attuned Leather Pants. This is a little bit different and something I want to mention for builds going forward. So of course we know that the Attuned Leather Pants are a staple in pretty much every single build I do, as it is still one of the best armor artifacts for our kits. With that said, we have added Crippling Powder Burn. A reason for this is, if we added a harnessing to the Attuned Leather Pants, it would only be relative and useful to min-max for one specific build. But if we added Crippling Powder Burn, now we have the Attuned Leather Pants as a universal artifact that we can use on all of our different range builds without just catering to one, which also covers the Rune Glass here. Instead of using a elemental split Rune Glass like on our previous armor pieces, we've used a ranged Rune Glass case, which is a sighted Rune Glass case, which means we just deal 1% more range damage, which is the same as an elemental case, 2%, but it's half our damage, so it's only 1%. This is the best way to do it to make our Attuned Leather Pants universal for all of our builds, and what I would highly recommend doing, so you don't min-max just for one build and you can min-max for all of your builds and get a little bit out of it. So of course there's the Attuned Leather Pants there. Jumping on to the last but not least on the armor here is the Admiral's Peg, which is the boots for the set. We've added the Ice Harnessing and, it comes with Ice Harnessing Elemental version, same as the other 3 pieces, and once again, the third I've added is Flame Conditioning. And if you wanted to, you don't necessarily have to upgrade your Admiral set straight away, especially as it's quite expensive on the chromatic seals cost, which means you don't need to worry about the Flame Conditioning relatively soon, and you can upgrade that further down on the line when you have the resources to do so, and you can just stick to the 2-perker Admiral set with Ice Harnessing and Elemental version, as they are still fantastic 2-perker pieces that come with both the crucial perks you need, which is the best part about it in my opinion. Jumping onto the amulet of the Amulet of Sharnation, which technically should not be here, as that is a little bit harder to get, although I have seen a lot more people getting through worm runs, which is why I did actually put it here, I believe. So after 2 weeks, you know, 1 worm run a week, you could just pay for a run. I think they're getting fairly cheap now. And especially if you're in a consistent worm group, you can do clears in around 8 to 10 minutes. But yeah, after 2 weeks with the Sandworm Materia, you will be guaranteed an Amulet of Sharnation. But if you're still not confident or you still don't have a raid group, the other option for the amulet is the Tanglevine Amulet, which is the other fantastic option here. And again, you could just add stamina recovery to that and then add your gem as well. That's only going to cap out at 700 gear score though, which is fine. For the ring, we have the Hoplite ring, and again, this comes from the Hive of Gorgons raid. At this point, I feel like most people are consistently clearing Hive of Gorgons, so I don't think there should be too much of a worry getting the Hoplite stuff, especially the named items. Again, we're not using the Gorgonite crafts, as the Gorgonite crafts might be easy to get the Inductor once a week, but the problem comes getting the expensive resources for those crafts, which is why I went with the Admiral set, as in my opinion, this is extremely budget friendly. You don't even need to add your third perk, and it's a fantastic 2-perker set, that you can have until you feel comfortable investing the chromatic seals to upgrade it. So that's the hoplite ring there. Of course, bloodletting. If you wanted to craft a ring, however, I will mention it. If you wanted to craft a Gorgonite ring, you would go with Ice Damage, Hearty, and Invigorated Punishment. Jumping onto the earring, last but not least, we have, of course, the Endless Thirst. Stock standard, every build uses this. And I added Nimble to it. You could also, if you want, add a Refreshing Toast or Regenerating, depending on your preference. That is pretty much the entire build, of course, leaving in the heart rune here, or almost forgetting about the heart rune, as we went with the Cunning heart rune of Cannon Blast if you want more damage, or if you want a little bit of survivability, you would go with the Stalwart heart rune of Stoneform. For the stats and the trees, we'll jump onto those quickly here. For Musket, of course, you've got a sleuth of trees, which are on my website, but you can also just refer to them here. I've got the Sticky Bomb tree mentioned right here, but you can also do the Shooter Stance tree, the Power Shot, and the Stopping Power tree, or even a Trapper tree, depending on your playstyle. Pretty much every single Musket ability is usable now, but it comes down to preference and what you enjoy using. Now for the Ice Gauntlet, I have opted for Wind Chill, Ice Storm, and Ice Shower, as in my opinion these are really nice pickups that really go hand in hand with the Deep Freeze. Obviously Wind Chill, that is buffed by the ability on our Deep Freeze, Chilling End, 15% additional damage. Ice Storm, that's a wide AoE or area of effect ability, that when we switch back to our Musket we get that 15% increased damage on those chilled targets, which is fantastic. Also having the Unending Thaw perk on our armor, taking even more damage on those enemies, which is a nice effect to have. Last but not least, Ice Shower. This is a really good CC ability where you can even have a little bit of team utility, and you could Ice Shower off a gate or such in Outpost Rush, which is great for your team play. So you could actually be a bit useful to your team other than kill stealing, but that is again part of our role. And we also have that Deadly Frost perk on our armor there, which also enhances that ability. There is the other option here where you could take off either Ice Shower or Wind Chill. I think Wind Chill's fun, I like using it. For Entomb, if you want that little bit of security, that little bit of defense or mobility to get away from something, and have a little bit of invulnerability, that is up to you. Personally, if you want that, I'll just use Stoneform and stick to the 3 CC abilities, or the 2 CC plus Wind Chill on IG, but it's up to you. Of course, these are the passives I went with, the crit chance, the attack damage. We went with the left side ultimate, as that's more damage. And then we, of course, have Defiant Freeze for a little bit of Fortify as well, which is quite nice. That is pretty much everything, and last but not least for the stats, I suppose, we go with 25 Strength, 350 Dexterity, and 300 Intelligence, but the other way of doing this is you could also go for 350 Intelligence, 300 Dexterity, and 25 Strength. You would go for the 350 Intelligence build if you want to buff your Ice Gauntlet damage a little bit more, and you would go for the 350 Dex build if you want to buff your Musket damage a little bit more. But that is overall the Musket Deep Freeze build, which I've held off on for long enough, as I do think it is a fun, a fantastic build that is competitively viable. Last but not least, I'll leave you with some clips in today's video, and yeah, GG's, I'll see you guys in the next one. We're coming closer and closer to Season 7, and whatever that entails, hopefully we get a dev video soon. Peace.